Greetings and welcome to day 5 of the Caribbean Studies Association's 47th conference, where our theme is Transforming Our Caribbean. We have made it to the closing sessions. We are really excited to be able to share with everyone a little bit of information of what has transpired through this entire week. We've had 4 days of jam-packed plenaries, film screenings, as well as sessions that were geared around a variety of areas, inclusive of cultural creatives, as well as sacred traditions, sustainable, education, as well as environmental solutions to what is impacting our entire region. We've also had the opportunity for young scholars to engage and be really participatory in how we are mentoring them, how we are serving as mentees, how we are serving as mentors. Notice what's taking place because it's a very reciprocal type of relationship. We've also had the opportunity to have authors celebrated and honored in regard to the literature that they have prepared, published, worked very hard on to be able to contribute to the wide array of this reservoir of Caribbean studies. And we're very much so looking forward to being able to share some updates on that. There's been a significant amount of history offered regarding the Caribbean Studies Association as well. And this afternoon, we're going to have a slight shift in our program, primarily because we are excited to be able to share some, not new, but commonly unknown information. I'm curious, when you think of the CSA, do you think of the CSA being founded by one person, 2 persons, a few hundred persons? Because most of our literature says that it speaks of the Caribbeanists that came together in the number exceeding 300. But we have right here in St. Croix, one of the only living founder of the Caribbean Studies Association. And that is none other than the Honorable Dr. Simon B. Jones Hendrickson. Please give him a round of applause. And while his health has interfered with his ability to be here physically, we're doing our utmost best beyond all of the other obstacles that exist that you know, that walk on 2 and walk on 4 and fly and swim and circle, etc., to be able to have at least his voice, his words, and by this afternoon a video that will be shared with his full permission. I think it's important for persons to know that he represents a very long-standing amount of scholarship here at the University of the Virgin Islands, where he not only served as a student, but continued on with his doctoral research overseas and returned to what was then the College of the Virgin Islands, which is now the University of the Virgin Islands, and retired as a dean in the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. So we just want to, again, acknowledge the founder of the Caribbean Studies Association as we celebrate. We're going to see a very interesting shift here. I also want to acknowledge that in addition to moving into our luncheon plenary, with the featured keynote being Samuel Raphael, CEO of Jungle Bay Resorts. And we're going to get a chance to see a little snippet of what Jungle Bay Resorts actually provides and produces around all things geared towards environmental solutions, ecotourism, entrepreneurship, and of course, youth succession planning. We're doing all of this, but who are we bringing along so that they can keep this as an institution and make it economically viable and successful? And so we're going to have Sam Raphael share on that. We've also been given what I consider an extra gift, right? And that is in the embodiment of Tim Reed, right? And I have the, yes, we can clap, yes. We don't have to be academically stoic, yeah? And I just wanted to acknowledge that shortly after Sam's presentation, because Sam is actually being video conferenced in from Dominico, we're going to have some remarks and reflections from Tim Reed, and at that time I will read the more detailed bio. With that being said, are we ready for the video piece now? All right. I think it's important to just highlight that Sam Raphael, as quiet as it's kept, yes, out of Dominico, and grew up here, you know, contributed here, an entrepreneur here, you know, led various different businesses, you know, even his daughter is in real estate now, you know, here in St. Croix, you know, and I think it's important that we recognize when our own homegrown come forward in the Caribbean spaces, that there's a respect and honor that should be afforded to them. So when we speak of transforming our Caribbean, and as the cover says, clear the road, ayo, clear the road. Yeah, make sure that we keep that in mind. And with that, we're going to start with this film. I think it's important that we get a chance to, okay, keep talking, because that's what's happening. When I speak, it's coming on that side.
I'm hearing you.
But you can hear me now?
Greetings.
Greetings.
Should I just continue?
I'm going to say yes, because when I speak, it doubles, so you go ahead and speak. I'll turn off my mic. Welcome, Brother Sam. I wanted to do my
So,
whole introduction, but we're going to pass on that because I don't want to just interfere with the sound. But everyone, let's
okay,
welcome
greet-
Sam Raphael! Woo!
I am feeling very conflicted. I'm very happy this morning, midday, to be with you, my Crucian brothers and sisters, Virgin Islanders, Caribbean people. But I am also disappointed that I couldn't be there physically. Unfortunately, air traffic within the Caribbean, regional travel, seemed to be getting worse and worse every day. And I was unable to get up within the limited time that I had to get from Dominica to St. Croix, which is only a 1 hour flight. So I'm really sad by that, and I have to do this remotely because I wanted it to be more interactive and to be more, engaging. And I'll try to do my best with respect to that. As Dr. Kahina mentioned, I am a dual Crucian and Dominican. I claim both islands, but I also claim the rest of the Caribbean, and I'm really pleased to be, invited as a guest of the Caribbean Studies program this year to talk a little about sustainable tourism, which, as I mentioned, we have some challenges. So I'll do my brief intro. Many people in the audience, I know my background. It's a common background. Friends, family, there I saw in part of the video some persons. I won't mention who I saw because I'll miss some and I'll get in trouble for not mentioning people's names. I know we like to know that we're recognized, so I won't go there, but it's like a homecoming to talk to our people in the Caribbean. My background is my family was born in the Eastern Caribbean in Dominica. Like so many people that migrated in the 60s, so we migrated to the U.S. Virgin Islands in 1967. I went to that time Grove Place Elementary School. That's my foundation. 67, you can recall the Bethlehem, the sugar factory shut down in 67. And there was a proliferation of outside investment in the tourism and watch factories and the refinery and the aluminum processing plant. So there was a huge transformation going on St. Croix, and the Virgin Islands was seen as an opportunity for persons like my parents and persons from other Caribbean islands to seek what they thought was a better life, not just for them, but for their children. And this, by the way, it didn't start in 67. It started hundreds of years ago, and Caribbean people have migrated either to Panama to build the Panama Canal, migrated to Cuba, to Dominican Republic, et cetera, Guyana when they got gold there. So the inter-Caribbean migration is something that is part of who we are. And if we know our history, we can connect to every one of us. We can connect to migration within the Caribbean. So when my family moved to St. Croix, I studied, I remember, at Grove Place Elementary School. It was then, it's now Urali Rivera. I had some venerable teachers. If you ever run into a beautiful young woman named Winona Hendricks, she was my third grade teacher and my fifth grade teacher. And she had tremendous impact on me, along with people like Dr. Kahina's mother-in-law, Cristalia Christopher. She was my sixth grade teacher. And between Winona Hendricks and another fifth grade teacher, Antonio Steele, that's my real foundation, because they taught us about the heritage and culture of the islands of the Caribbean, especially Steelo, as we know Mr. Steele. He was the only teacher that allowed us to call him by his first name, Steelo. And they planned a fifth grade trip to St. John. And we had to raise funds as kids. I was about 10, 11 years old at the time. And these are very impressionable years on children. And we mustn't forget those times, and we mustn't forget making those impressions, because oftentimes they last. In addition to learning the fundamentals and discipline and so on, they taught us about the environment and about the culture and the heritage of the Caribbean. And so we took, I think Captain Blair, you guys will remember him. These are old school people I'm talking to. If you're a newbie on St. Croix, you wouldn't recognize that. But at the time, the Goose, the seaplane was a a goose is what it was called. And we had a pilot with no hands. He was a double amputee, and he flew us to St. Croix. The round trip into Cruz Bay, yes, the seaplane would go up the ramp in Cruz Bay, and it was $15 for the round trip. And we as students were able to go to Cinnamon Bay, and there we studied about the environment. We tried to keep our food from the donkeys and the mongoose. For that matter, there was a mascot, Ivan the mongoose, and Ivan taught us about conservation, about recycling, reusing, and preservation. And folks, this is over 50 years ago. So you could imagine how forward thinking that was. And after that weekend in Cinnamon Bay, St. John, I decided when I grow up, I want to have a campground too. And this is what I want to do. And it led to, actually, that's the seed that germinated and created the Jungle Bay model. And you saw some of that in the video. I don't think the volume was there, even though much wasn't said, but it kind of gave you a feel for what we have here today at Jungle Bay. We've got a property with 89 rooms. It's built on, on principles of conservation. It's built on principles not just of physical conservation, which is important, but of also other sustainable development principles of using local product, of promoting local people, local heritage and culture. And when you combine those things and the new emerging trends of health and wellness, we have now the creation of a new niche of tourism. So this is what I kind of want to share with you, this sustainable tourism thing. You may have heard talk about it. What's going on with the world of tourism? And every island's got the same question. What can we do to increase our tourism development on the island? What can we do to grow our economy? The Caribbean islands, we're separated. We don't have too much of a population for standard industries. The cost of doing business, cost of living is high because we're isolated islands. And we've got great sun and sand, so we have, by default, we have evolved globally as a tourism niche, especially for persons coming from North America and Europe and want to stay during the winter and thaw out for a week or 2 weeks. And this is the niche that we have become. Unfortunately, that niche has been under threat from largely larger jurisdictions that can do it more efficiently than we can, and that's what's been happening since around the 70s. We have the emergence of Mexico, and some of the other Latin American countries have gotten into the tourism game. Cuba has been opening up. The Dominican Republic was seen as in the 70s as unstable politically, but that has evolved into a tourism powerhouse. And Jamaica also being a larger economy. So virtually all the investment of the past couple decades had gone into those countries. And the smaller islands like St. Croix and Eastern Caribbean islands have not been able to attract that much investment because, quite frankly, it's easier to get to those places. The economies of scale give them the advantage cost-wise, and they have a better value proposition when you're only selling sun, sand, and sea. They have that. The small islands have the same thing. It's cheaper there. You don't know what island you're on, but you're on the beach. Why not? And so the investment and the numbers have gone in that direction. And even more recently, we found that that's been shifting also to Asia, where you've got growing markets in Asia, leisure markets, but also you've got growing destinations that can, develop that can offer a tourism product, the sun and sand, the same thing that we offer in the Caribbean, for even less than you can get from Mexico. And so the value is even greater there. So that hasn't encouraged new investment. And as a result, we've had a poor performance. By and large, we try to basically to keep where we are. We try not to lose our position, but we really haven't been able to attract any growth in the Eastern Caribbean because of these threats. And so where do we go from here? What do we have to offer? What are some of the unique things that we can offer this emerging, the growing market to make ourselves competitive again and to take a leadership role in tourism development? For one, going into the future, travelers, persons all over the world, they are interested in the environment. What are the people interested in now? The environment. They're interested in their health, especially in the post-COVID world, interested in other people's culture and heritage. How can we, learn more and experience more? The niches of adventure, of wellness, as part of the travel adventure, travel experience is paramount in the minds of today's visitors. And in our cases, we have some definite limitations in these areas because, for one, you need to be able to travel to the region in order to enjoy what we have to offer. And even though we have some flights coming into the region, a lot of people travel to the Caribbean. They realized that it would cost, there's environmentally conscious, it would cost maybe 85 to 100 gallons of fuel. Literally, if you do not know this, that's a fact that you know now, that for a person to fly from Europe to the Caribbean or some parts in North America to the Caribbean, the round trip, when you average it out, the average passengers, they have to burn 85 to 100 gallons of fuel to get here. And now that's a lot on the environment. And maybe people don't want to just come to one island anymore. If you're going to spend that much, in terms of carbon on the environment, you want to make sure that it's a trip that's worth your while. And so persons coming to the region more and more, they want to do what is called multi-destination visits. And we're seeing this in the Eastern Caribbean. They may come from, somewhere in Europe especially, and the American market and the Canadian market are evolving this way also, and they want to stay a little longer so that they don't burn up all this fuel going back and forth. They're thoughtful of the environment, but they don't want to stay in one island. They want different experiences. So with us in Dominica, sometimes they fly into Guadeloupe or Martinique, which have good air access from Air France and from Europe, and they take the ferry to Dominica and to Guadeloupe, and at least they get three experiences. St. Lucia the same. They're part of the ferry system, and so you can move within those areas. But many people would want to come and they want to go to the Virgin Islands. People from Europe, from Denmark, may want to come here and go to VI or maybe St. Martin, or they may want to leave St. Croix and go to St. Martin or Antigua or someplace else. And we often try to keep it all to ourselves, but again, we are a region. Whether we view ourselves that way or not, the world sees us as a region. And they want to explore and enjoy the Caribbean. So we need to find ways to enable people to enjoy the Caribbean, and it won't take away from what we have to offer. Certainly, you'll have more people splitting their stays, but the bottom line is you're going to have a much more attractive product and attract many more people. So ultimately, we will benefit from those things. We also have to look at the factors of safety and security that we must, in fact, take seriously, and and see what we're going to do to improve those things. We need to look at the other aspect where persons want to develop tourism facilities in our island, and hopefully we're not talking about people from the outside. If you look at yours truly, I think there is a growing pool of Caribbean people now that are prepared. The world right now, I don't want to say there's no challenge, there are no challenges, but we've never had so many opportunities. And so certainly creating an enabling environment for our people to engage in tourism. I can share with you at one point there was a presumption that persons would probably not want to support Caribbean people as owners and operators of tourism facilities, and I'm testament. I'm seeing quite the opposite. Persons are very interested in going local when if they can get a high value product and it's locally owned, it gives them an additional feeling of good, especially if that venture is also doing other social development things. So you're spending your money and you're getting full enjoyment as a visitor, but you also know that you're supporting local businesses. You also know that you're supporting education and other programs in these islands. And so there's some opportunities now for linkages for our local people, and I would like to encourage us. We have young entrepreneurs around us and not so young in age, maybe young in heart, and we want to encourage you to consider again, business. It's not just, something for someone else. We sit and we mention all the opportunities that can be. We ourselves have to step in there and take advantage of these opportunities. And I'm, happy to see when I travel throughout the Caribbean and even in Africa and so on, we have a new generation of young people that are serious about creating wealth for themselves and multi-generational wealth. And we hear this all the time. And so this is why it's important that we, as the elders and those in positions of authority, need to ensure that we help to improve the enabling environment as much as possible for these young persons. There are some interesting emerging niches that I think we can look into and talk a little about. There are some things that are happening also in the world that's making it much easier for persons to get in. Certainly, you will need to have the know-how. That's probably the most important thing. And if you haven't done something yet, you don't have all the know-how, but you've prepared yourself in the areas in which you link to what it is that you're doing, and you have some capacity. Importance to have the fight within you. You have to be optimistic about it, and you must have some business capacity and some strong discipline. And discipline is very important, because if you're not focused and disciplined, you're going to get discouraged. You're going to get hit in the face. You're going to get let down, and you got to get up, pick up the pieces, shake it up, not feel sorry for yourself, and keep fighting. And this is what it's going to take. You also have technology now that can enable persons to get into things rather quickly. So we have internet technology. How does that link up with tourism? Well, we're here. I'm talking to you remotely, but I can enjoy your money at Jungle Bay because you must be present to spend that. So tourism is one of those things. It's an export commodity in that we depend on persons from away, but that product must be consumed locally. So we need the air access to get them here. Whatever air access we have, we need to build on that. But in terms of internet technology, it enables us to market and to promote our product in a way that we've never been able to do before. When I got into this business, which was in the late 90s, you needed to, before anyone out there would know you exist, you would need to get tour operators to validate you, and then they would share the information with travel agents, and when people want to travel, they contact the travel agent, and the travel agent would advise them on where to go. Well, to some extent, in some niche markets, that kind of worked with diving and so on and so forth. But most people, they just go and click on the computer, and through either directly contacting the hotel, which they know about, or through some other platform, Airbnb or Expedia or whatever, or do a Google search. And through Google searches, they can learn about destinations and interesting things. And I can tell you, most of our visitors that come to Jungle Bay are independent travelers that find us through search engines. That's how people know, or word of mouth, or the repeat words of persons that were here. They tell you, or they want to come visit again. This is how the information goes out. But the first visitor, you can get to them through, even if you've got a small place, you list it on Airbnb, you market it properly, you have to develop a competitive product and a unique, reason, a compelling reason why people need to come to your place. And you can actually go out there without having to go through, travel agents and tour operators and that long-winded 2-3 year window you would need to be present in the marketplace. You can do it at the snap of your finger. And this is something that presents a unique opportunity now for Caribbean people to go in. You don't have to get into something big. It doesn't have to be something like we have at Jungle Bay, 89 rooms. It could be, your 5-room family home. You've outgrown the home, and you now want to start a robust Airbnb product. You get that going, and if you can now add on to your accommodation revenue, accommodation revenue should only be a part of your product, part of your offering. For instance, at Jungle Bay, I can tell you the accommodation part of our revenue is less than 40%. Where does the 60% come from? Well, tours and transportation. We've got many interesting tours and activities for people to do. We got a spa, spa treatments. We've got the restaurants, the food service, and we've got gift shop sales and so on. Those things make up the bulk of our revenue. and the rooms only become a parking lot. So persons who wish to go in, you can go in small and you can expand, but you have to provide a compelling reason why someone should come to your establishment and not mine. And when I say yours and mine, I mean yours and the other millions out there. So you need to have an interesting product that you are the only one that can offer, and you can offer it best. If you live on an island and it rains every day and it's just muddy, right now you can offer, a mud hut experience. It sounds crazy to the sane ones of us, but trust me, there are crazy people that would want to come and get dirty and splattered in mud. It's a matter of setting expectations and fulfilling it. They come, they know they're going to get dirty and muddy, and it's going to, and then we're going to, you know, roast on a mud stove, and you build it up and create a product. That's interesting. There's a market for every possible product you can come up with, but you must define it. And sometimes we discount or discredit, or we don't even recognize the products we have around us. And this is something I think policymakers and just the average people on our islands need to recognize, that there are lots of things about our heritage and culture that we do every day that we take for granted. We never equate that to a guest experience. And someone in Paris or someone in Manhattan or someone wherever would love to come and have a coconut experience, where you show them the difference between the jelly nuts, and just as long as they don't cut their finger, let them cut the coconuts themselves, and even learn how to climb the tree, or the drying one, let them grate it, or make some sugar cake or something with it, or make coconut milk. You can create almost every aspect of our lives, equate to really, unique experiences. And a lot of our islands have, even within that, unique experiences with the cuisine and so on. And this is what people want to travel to come see. They don't want to travel to just lay out in the sun and get sunburned anymore. That people are too smart for that these days. And so this is where we provide opportunities, not just in accommodation, but all other aspects, other crafts that we can sell. We can create some popular things. Examples on St. Croix, I can tell you, everyone that goes to St. Croix, what do they have to go to? The chicken shack. Okay? You got to go to the chicken shack. So when I talk to people about St. Croix, I say you got to get chicken shack, you got to get Armstrong ice cream, and I start to give them this. I'm not going to go further because I'll get in trouble because I'll miss someone. But there are some unique things. We need to inventory. That's what we have. That's our starting point. And we need to build on that. The island of so many windmills. How are we connecting that to have a windmill tour? Everywhere doesn't have those windmills that we have on St. Croix. And I say this St. Croix because this St. Croix is a host, but you can ditto that in Antigua, you can ditto that in Tobago, you can ditto that in St. Kitts, you can ditto that in St. Vincent. Anywhere you go, there are tremendous opportunities for us in tourism and in the supply chain that supplies tourism. So again, we want to emphasize, as Dr. Chinzera said, about the young people. We're there. We're paving the way for them. See how it is that we can streamline things, the permitting process. I'm not in favor of development that will in any way degrade the environment whatsoever, but let's be quick on our responses, because it's a competitive environment out there. If you're going to create too much red tape and make it difficult for persons, they won't stick around. They'll go someplace else. And I've seen this on St. Croix, quite frankly. A no would do, and at least you can move on, or a yes, and let us see how we can work with you. And even the regulators, your role is to regulate, but all of us, if tourism is everyone's business, your role is to facilitate also, and to ensure that the money comes into the community, and is benefits the community, and it's certainly
I want to,
one
I
of
want to, once, give us a second, please. Did everybody understand what, I need you to make this mute. Yeah, multitask, thank you. That means I'm gonna come in. Oh, that's what I need to do. Okay. I like technology when it's cooperative. I just want us to give a round of applause for Sam Raphael's being able to share that. And I know there's some burning questions, so I want to kind of navigate a couple of things, because we're dealing with the technology, we're dealing with the ecotourism piece. We're dealing with entrepreneurship. So I want you, if you have a burning question for Sam, to just give us a moment, because I want to, as I said earlier, share another guest that we've been graced with, right? And I want to make sure I do it properly. I was giving notes. I love this part. Not by him, but by, I love short version. He said do the short version. But I want us to just welcome Tim Reed. Actor, writer, producer, and director Timothy L. Reed was born on December 19th, in Norfolk, Virginia. As a teenager growing up in Norfolk, Reed dealt with the horrors of segregation during the height of the civil rights movement in Virginia's Tidewater area. And in addition to earning degrees in business administration from Norfolk State University, he also has had the opportunity to engage in work around these devastating spaces where the high rates of drug abuse and violence among teenagers facilitated Reed developing an anti-drug program for students. And keeping in mind, I love these cheat sheets. Keep in mind that this is something that he has been involved in for a very long time, like from the 60s. So this isn't someone that's not seasoned. And I think it's really important that we highlight that. In addition to that, I love this, receptive to the idea, the duo began to write comedic material and formed Tim and Tom, arguably the first interracial comedic duo. Reed and Dressen toured from 1971 to 1975 before disbanding to pursue other interests. And we can go on from 1976, talk about broadcast work, being part of the cast with Richard Pryor, of course, having certain things shifting, some really interesting controversy and creative differences between NBC and the show's namesake. The show was canceled after only 4 episodes. I think it's important to know he's been on the other side of really being not just controversial, I like to use the word revolutionary. I like the word revolutionary and really being transformative in his work. And I wanted, since I was guided to make it short, in 1997, Reed co-founded New Millennium Studios with his wife, actress Daphne Maxwell Reed. In 2009, Reed established the Legacy Media Institute to train emerging filmmakers around the world. Reed has also remained active in the community, donating his time for various charitable activities. And I think it's real important to know that he is part of the Research and Technology Park family here, right here in St. Croix. Let us welcome Tim Reed.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And yes, I'm old. But one of the reasons I have been blessed with the years has to do with the Caribbean. When I first started making money about 40-something years ago in entertainment, what do you do with it? So I decided to tell my family we're going to start traveling. And the first place that we started coming to was the Caribbean. We've been to every island, just about. I think it's only 2 or 3 islands that I've never been on. And it's always been a place for me to recharge. It's always been a place for me spiritually that I connected to. I don't know why, but I've been on all these islands. For the last 14 years, I've been spending a lot of time in Cuba. And about a year ago, I was invited to come to this place called St. Croix, one of the few islands I had never been on. St. Thomas, but never come to St. Croix. And they had me to come down to speak at a tech conference. That was to be broadcast to Taiwan and a few places in the world. What I did not know until about a day before I was to speak, that I was a keynote speaker in technology. And you go, now what in the world has he got to do with technology? Well, guess what's happened over the last 40 years of my experience in show business? There have been massive changes. It now changes every 6 months. It's just amazing how our business of communicating propaganda around the world has been impacted by technology. And as I was listening to the gentleman before me, and he talked about tourism, and there are so many things that have kept the Caribbean in the focal point of what was going on in the world. Dating back, I now call this place, the Caribbean, the New World. And you go, why do I call it the New World? Well, whenever anybody thinks about the New World, they think about America. They think about the Europeans, the Western civilization was saved by America. Well, let's get to the facts. America was a failed economic adventure. America didn't start making money until after its Revolutionary War in the late 1700s, early 1800s, when they began to bring over things that had been already put into a business model from the Caribbean, tobacco, cotton, all these things. So where did all this money come from that brought the old world out of the Dark Ages, around the late 1400s, the Caribbean? When they began to come here on the ships and bring slave labor, it was because of that that the old world was given its opportunity to create wealth and power. And we've kind of forgotten that in the Caribbean. We're focused on many things, but I think you need to go back and look at your history and see how impactful it has been to the world. With that in mind, we're now at a point where there are major opportunities in the Caribbean. That's why I've adopted this place as my second home. It's because I have, but I have found some opportunities here that very little of you even mention anything about. I discovered it about a year ago with this gentleman you see here, Peter Chapman, who is the man who runs RT Parks and very inventive and focuses on economic growth. And he's now focused on technology and bringing sustainability to this island and other islands, and getting young people to come back home and giving them opportunities and job opportunities, as well as to think in the future of what can be done. How can we make money? Yes, tourism is it, no question about it. However, tourism, and not only because of the environment, but because of freak situations like COVID. In 2019, tourism stopped on most of these islands. You wouldn't get on a ship to go anywhere because you might not get off it unless you're in a bag. But so tourism was really hit, and it hurt these islands. So we have to start thinking about alternative businesses. We have to think about alternative ways for young people to create an environment where they can succeed, have families, run the government when they take over. And there are many opportunities: sustainability, environmental. But one of them is being forced on us through this thing called technology, AI, and all this stuff that's coming through the internet. We are so tied to it now. We don't even realize how our lives are connected to technology. But there's one thing we forget. Most of the technology that we get coming down from wherever it comes from, whether it's Elon Musk or through his Sky network or through the old cable systems that goes from America to Europe, comes through only three ways: fiber optics, cable, and satellite. That's it. And America, you know, I always joke my friends in America because we all tied to technology. We got our boxes, Warner cable, Comcast cable. You know where those boxes sit that comes to your house? On a telephone pole that was created in the late 1800s. Most of technology comes to you through old technology. Telephone poles, cables. So if it ever goes out, if there's a hurricane, what do you do? What's going to happen when you can't get to your bank? If we're all going to be using tokens and not cash, what's going to happen? How do we pay our bills if the power goes out? Well, you guys have an opportunity here that I discovered on my trip here a year ago, and that is fiber optics. This place is one of the most important places in this hemisphere. Do you not know that all the fiber optics that comes from Patagonia all the way up to Nova Scotia comes to St. Croix? Everything, whether it's Amazon, it doesn't matter. It all comes through to St. Croix to be pushed to Africa and Europe. So this is a very important island, guys. It is one of the most important islands in the United States area of technology or connecting. So you have a wonderful opportunity here that young people are beginning more and more, thanks to RT Parks, getting involved in not just using technology, but creating the codes, the businesses that you need in order to push your signals and interact with the world. Within literally a year or so from now, we'll be able to send our technology and our content to Africa, any place in Africa. Africa actually is ahead of us. I spent a lot of time in Africa traveling because they've been using mobile phones to buy things, and long before we got the opportunity to do anything, you could go to a Coca-Cola machine, put your iPhone 5 or 6 years ago in South Africa. So they're ahead of us. Why? Because they didn't have the infrastructure. They didn't get the telephone poles. So when people wanted to bring commerce, they went in and said, okay, let's put in fiber optics. Let's put in these things that will cause us, or give us an opportunity to make more money, to connect to our people. And that's the opportunity I think we have in the Caribbean, is because, okay, now we are focusing on new businesses. And I think technology, and in the islands that you come from, you really got to push your government or your investors to pay more attention to self-sustaining businesses. You know, it's embarrassing when you, when you think about it, and I give Peter and a lot of folks here a hard time. As I said, back when the New World was being discovered, most of the things the New World ate came from the Caribbean. And now, 90% of the things that you eat in the Caribbean comes from Europe or South America. Why is all this land? You look at this incredible, you can't grow something on this land. You can't grow on the trees, papaya, mangoes, and there's no reason that these islands should not be self-sustaining for agriculture. Why? Because we're focused on other things. We're focused on the history and how things were, but we're not paying attention. We're not thinking about our young people. We're not bringing them back. We're not supporting their businesses the way we should. And we got to do that. It's not going to happen in America. America's shutting down. It's shutting down our culture. Most of the things we're saying today, we get arrested if we said it in Florida. They don't hear anything up in no history. What do you mean the New World started there? How dare you? Christopher Columbus gave us the opportunity. Never even got to America. Matter of fact, St. Croix was one of the first islands that he ever landed on, here in Puerto Rico. So when you think about your history and what you have, that's why I call the Caribbean the new world. The opportunities are great for young people to come back, but you got to give them an opportunity to connect. You've got to use your technology. I launch probably next month, but we won't go live till, probably late July, a television network that I developed during the COVID. It's called LGCY TV, Legacy of a People is this long name, but the young folks said, no, you got to use the anagram. You got to be LGCY or something like that. I said, okay, we'll do it. I'd have called it Legacy of a People Network, but they want LGCY. So we're creating LGCY TV Carib. It'll be located here, and we'll be broadcasting to all of the Caribbean islands. About 20 million households available to us. And you'll be seeing content on history, culture, sports, and we'll be connecting to the African continent probably within the next 6 to 7 months. And that's going to be done right here. So there are opportunities, and we'll be employing people, the Caribbean young people. We're going to start training, our training program. I've done that in Africa, in Nigeria, South Africa, Ethiopia, and Europe, in London, with the British Film Institute for the last 12 years. So we have young people now who have businesses, who owns, there's a friend of mine, a young person I trained about 12 years ago, now has a studio in Lagos, Nigeria. And he became the first African to win the coveted Venice Film Festival Golden Lion. He's also the first African to be hired by Disney to direct and create 2 films for him. So these young people are ready. And we just have to put a little more time in them, give them a vision, and give them an opportunity beyond the old system. The old system works, and it feeds us, and we can build businesses. But let me tell you, the new system, you'll either be controlled and driven by technology, or you'll be a part of it and utilize it to build a future for you and your families. So that's why I'm here. LGCY TV will go up live thanks to this gentleman, Peter Chapman, who brought me here to herd me to do keynote speaking. But he never should have showed me that fiber optic building. I walked in there and I said, wait a minute, these walls are 3 foot thick. What is this place? I said, this is the junction for all fiber optics to go to Africa and Europe. It's an important opportunity, guys. And let's get the government to repair these roads. You know, they got a little money there. Let's let them, is he still here, the governor? Let's bring him in. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. Look, but there's great possibilities. I still say this is the new world. Be a part of it and make it possible. Any questions? Any questions? What island? Yes, sir. Question? Mm-hmm. 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 Yes. Mm-hmm. Good question. Very good question, as a matter of fact. Again, that's why organizations like RT Parks are very important to the future of what's happening on these islands. Most of the economic development companies are controlled by the government. This is one of the few, and which also another reason that I've been coming here, because it's independent, so therefore the thinking is unique and different. And so what I look at, as she mentioned a little bit in my past, I'm 70, well, almost 79, geez, 78. So I've come through a little of the turbulence that a lot of us have forgotten. And what I've discovered and what I was taught, coming from a very poor and no future whatsoever background, is that when there's chaos, when there's problems, that means there are incredible opportunities. You know, and so the world is in chaos right now. They screwed it up, and there's nothing we can do about it. I'm not going to let them work me to death trying to straighten out their problem. So what we have to do is use this chaos and benefit from it by taking this time, this opportunity when the world is bumping into one another, to have a straight vision. And what you said was, how do we get our culture, how do we get our information back and forth to one another? One thing is we have to begin to pay more attention to our culture, develop our culture. This channel that we're putting up, we're going to have content coming from all over the diaspora. We're going to have content in sports. We're going to have content and all of that because, as you said, there's a strike right now. It'll last for another 2 or 3 months. So there's nothing being made. Therefore, content, as they used to say, is king. Now, not only is it king, it's very profitable. So if you have content, you control your content, and there are opportunities through fiber optics or Elon Musk's satellite, you can spread your content. That is, they opened Pandora's box with this thing, and now they can't close it. So you can't be stopped. They're doing everything they can to stop TikTok. And understand why. It's propaganda, no question about it. But you can find an opportunity to get your content through other systems. We're going to be open. We're going to be on open source content. If the content is of a certain quality, we don't do well with mediocrity. We can't do that. So if you're going to be sending content to people, you want it to have a certain standard, just like it would be if you tried to take it to Time Warner or Comcast. But if your content has some kind of purpose and entertainment, we will be an open source to do that. And there are other things happening. As you might know, AT&T is now controlled by another company, Liberty. Well, Liberty is where our system is going to be on. And once we get our platform up, which we're talking about building, when our platform is up, we will be able to offer the same thing as anyone else. Whether it's Amazon or Google, it doesn't matter. We see ourselves in the next year or so creating a black digital network, much like and shaped like YouTube, where any content that is going to be of purpose to help with the future of economies, future of culture, there will be an access to that. And this is by the way, this is already happening in Europe. We're a little late because we're having some anti-woke issues. And while they fight over what we can't see, we should be fighting to get what we want to see up and electronically available to people. And I'm telling you, fiber optics right now is the future for this kind of opportunity, especially on these islands. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, just so curious about how libraries can fit into that infrastructure, because just trying to visit like the St. Croix Landmark Society this week, it was closed down. I sent emails over various times and didn't get replies, and then, went and they were, obviously the building is kind of in some disrepair from what I saw, at least from the outside. And then even driving around Frederickstead and seeing that public library is kind of shut down too, it seems, or online it says permanently closed. I'm just asking because I know there's so much capacity for libraries and information networks to be a part of this work. So I'm just wondering if there's wondering the history or maybe the presence of that, but also the futures of maybe collaboration there.
Well, actually, that's where you come in. And I say that because, if you want to hide the history of anybody, put it in a book. There's a building that through RT Parks, we were going through to look at it as a potential spot. And there are old structures of this old school. I won't name names, but as we were walking around these rundown, people have come in and taken all the piping out, these structures. There was one building that was called the library. And it was the library for this particular campus. All the other buildings have been stripped of everything. The library was basically untouched. There were books on the shelves. So all the people that were coming in rummaging these places, they went, "Whoa, there's a library, get out of there, you can learn something." So I say it's your problem. You have the technology. You have to work with these young people. Millennials, you guys looking for something to do, millennials? Here we got it. Get in these libraries and digitize. It's now an electronic medium. You're not going to get anybody to sit down in front of a book. But they will go online and they will read online with this medium or whatever it is, but it all has to be digitized. A few years ago, when Mr. Johnson of Ebony and Johnson Publishing Company, something that gave me a job when I was very young, selling the Jet. We called it the Jet. And oh yeah, I'm old. I have no problems with it. My spirit's young. That's what I live with. But I tried to go to him before he passed and make a deal where we would digitize all the photos in the library of Ebony magazine. And we had the contract written up, and we were going to do the magazine photos. I used to go, it was one of my accounts. I used to, when I worked for DuPont, they had walls and walls of every floor with nothing but photographs. This is before digitization was really the thing. And I did everything I could. We almost had the deal. I was going to do a show on CBS called The Ebony Years. Everything was worked. We had a budget. And there was a falling out because between us, our people, there was a disagreement. We refused to give respect to our elders. And the elders just kind of screwed it up too. I mean, we didn't mentor our children the way we should have. So there's a barrier between elders and young people. And I called him, as I said automatically, Mr. Johnson, because this man culturally is one of the most important black figures in the history of journalism. Well, someone who's now a billionaire would never call him Mr. Johnson. And in this last negotiation, I'm in the office at Ebony, he's about to sign the contract, and he notices in one of the things that I'm partnered with this particular person. He said, wait a minute, you partnered with this guy? I said, yeah, we worked, we've done some movies together. He says, nah, ain't doing it. He won't call me Mr. Johnson. So I'm calling this guy, call this man Mr. Johnson, please. And it didn't happen. And just last year, what's the company that has all the pictures in the world? You see their title at the end of it. What's the company? Just a public company. They own the rights to all the photos. Huh? Yes. Yes. Getty just bought the Johnson Publishing Library. So I say to you, young person, in your library, whatever city or island you live on, get a group of people, get a scanner, go in there and digitize the information that you feel important to you and your culture. I did that in Cuba. I was in a documentary on, and I'll be short, I know you guys got a lot to do. It was a documentary about the Independent Party of Color, because we don't know our history. It was the first multiracial political company in this hemisphere. And it was right after the War of Independence. We call it, of course, Spanish-American War. The War of Independence. So we needed these documents. So we went to the library. We had to get, literally, Castro had to give us permission. And the gentleman who I was with, the journalist, actually spoke personally, got it done. We're in the library. I brought over 2 scanners. And they bring out these newspapers dating back to the Revolution. And we were laying them on the scanner, scanning these photographs. Literally, after we finished, they dissolved on the scanner. We couldn't even pick them up. They just, whoop. So I have a library of photos that no longer even exist in Cuba. Wow. And most of the people in Cuba had never seen these photographs about this particular war of independence. So it's important to go to these libraries and to scan, especially local libraries like this. We've been talking about doing a project with about the burn and the women who led that revolution. It's an important story. Everybody knows Toussaint, but they don't know Queen Mary and these other women. That's an incredible story. So this library here has stuff and there are books written, so all that needs to be digitized. Once it's digitized, whatever format it is, we can save it till they create the next thing. But our stuff is always not digitized because we don't think about it being important. And then because somebody wouldn't call somebody Mr. Johnson, we lost the opportunity to control that content. So in your local libraries, young people, get in there. I did this in Petersburg at the Fort Lee, the largest procurement center in the world for cross militaries. So I was doing a documentary on black women in the military. So I went in there, and just so happened that the base commander at that time was a black man. I went in there and used my Mau experience and got him to allow us to come in. I brought some students from Virginia State. We brought scanners and to take stuff down. And we now have an incredible library of the history of black women in the military. So it's there. We just have to realize the value of it. So you're right, the library is important, but You're not going to get anybody of us or the government to give you the time to do that. You have to do that.
I don't want to stop the flow. However,
We gotta stop the flow.
we need to navigate towards like maybe one closing question or comment, because we have another portion before we close the plenary.
Okay.
Because we have to prepare for this evening. I don't want to be seen as the person that stopped the party.
I'll be quick.
All it takes is a scanner. You can get a scanner for $120. Yes, sir.
If I may, and I'll be quick. First of all, we're much appreciative of being here and the companion of everybody. But as you said, I think content is really, really important to get the right contents in the right place. In our case, coming from Puerto Rico, it's kind of a strange story, you know, because our challenge is to get the people to realize we are also part of the Caribbean by nowadays.
Yes.
We may have had even fiber optics, perhaps, I guess, 50 or 60 years before anybody else in the Caribbean.
Yeah.
Matter of fact, by the 1870s, people may forget, but everything in the world, the entire economy that went to North America was funneled through Havana, Cuba. And we all in the Caribbean, including ourselves, fed that through there. By 1898, after during the Hispanic-American War, we were given to the United States. And some 40 to 50 years later, we started to split up politically and socially, so much so that we started to forget who we were. Now I am an environmental geologist in Puerto Rico, and I work with all these aspects with the people and these wonderful educators and musicians that I have sitting next to me. My wife first and foremost next to me. Nowadays, we have a school in Western Puerto Rico. So outside of what I do for the environment, and like yourself, I've visited most of the islands in the Caribbean. And I've worked with issues that may help everybody improve every one of the above aspects, including water management, solid waste management, land management, the air, and every one of the resources that we need to sell to the world how wonderful we are, and among all, the people. So how do we get the people involved? Education, and getting the message out there with resources like his, and having the right contents in the contents of things like the songs like these three people next to me write, which are amazing, and they tell the stories of what we are as part of the Caribbean. So even though Puerto Rico built perhaps politically a direct bridge to the United States, we are the Caribbean, and we are here to support St. Croix and the Virgin Islands and every one of these projects as well. So thank you very much.
Well, I want to definitely open up
Thank you.
our channel to Puerto Rico, and because I know that it will be available, I should say, through the former AT&T network, which I know Puerto Rico was included when we discussed what areas would the signal be available. So let's make sure we exchange content and get the story out. Thank you for giving me these few moments. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much,
Thank you.
Tim Reed. It's been an honor. Well, see, he's closer now, so this means I can go and find him, right, Peter? I'm just saying, right across the street, right? I think it's really important. We've heard some pretty interesting pieces, and since we've changed things a bit, we're going to ask most humbly, are we able to field any questions with Brother Sam, because he returned? All right, and that means I need to go over there and do that thing again? No, okay, I'm just asking. Were there any questions that anyone had for Brother Sam Raphael in regard to some of his particular engagements and sharings? Or any questions around ecotourism? I know you've heard a lot. There's been a lot. And after lunch, that might be a challenge. But I'm just curious, were there any other burning questions? Okay, they're going to bring a mic too. She's going to say it again.
Basically, I would like to get in touch with him Is he
Okay,
willing
right.
to-
We're all
is he-
trying to get to Jungle
is he-
Bay Resort
yes,
Spa.
and is he willing to mentor?
I have to give clarity. I go there whenever I'm in Dominica because it's a healing space in addition to all these other elements that he shared. And to see people bring food from in the community right there by this resort, and to see homegrown persons benefiting from this resort, that's another layer of development, right? So it's really interesting, and I could see what I'm seeing with that. We heard when we listened to the plenary presentation by Peter right here in the RT Park. So it's really clear that there's another layer of being able to have that development, letting it be sustainable, making sure that there is reciprocity, so that when we speak of agriculture, agritourism, ecotourism, cultural tourism, and technology, that we don't see it like is that it's far-fetched, right? Because at the end of the day, the technology only works as long as we're fed. And I'm saying that again, the technology only works as long as we're fed. And we need to be fed well, with good food. Like, I think I sound like I'm doing a Virgin Islands Good Food Coalition commercial. It sounded like that, though. But I just wanted to highlight that. You had a comment and question?
Yes, very quick one. But I'd like to ask the CEO, Jungle Bay, is he ready to work with the media for, in terms of media familiarization trips that will come throughout the Caribbean, come to his destination and become aware, and then they will return and begin to write and expose the great things he's doing. And also the community tourism consultants will also come and teach, well, will teach his community how to identify the good things that they have, basically their human capital and other capital they have to develop community tourism without leaving their villages, and then teach the rest of the Caribbean so he could become a center for that kind of tourism development.
Well, that's interesting. So can we hear, Sam, can you hear us?
Can you hear
can
me?
still hear us, but we're not hearing you now. Okay, we're getting ready to do that. 1 second. And
I
now.
am testing.
Yes, we hear you now.
I'm here and my mute button is not on.
We can hear you.
You want me to answer the question? Okay, fair enough. Yes, to both the person that asked about mentoring and about linking up with influencers or other entities, we do quite a bit of that, and we would like to review our proposals. I don't want to say blanket everyone and everything because it's business and I have to be realistic about that. But we do quite a bit of linking with in the persons and entities in the region, and even now in terms of the mentorship. On Sunday, I head up to Nashville to the Lantern Network, where I'm mentoring some young African Americans there through the Lantern Network. I have to present there also and do some mentoring. So yes, to do some mentoring, but again, it has to be something that that is very clear and is going to be productive, because there's a lot of demand for time. If you're ready to go, Chintera, I don't mind if anyone there on an individual basis, you have my contact if you wish to share it with them. And guys, if you want me to look at what you have, please put it in a 2-pager. You have to put your outline down. You have to put the details down, because it's about discipline. If you're just going to talk and not have anything to show, there's not much work we can do. But in order to be efficient and to make sure that you get value out of the exchange, put it down in writing and send it to me. We'd be happy to work with you on some of these things and see what we can do going forward. I'm very happy about supporting other Caribbean people in this space. What we've done at Jungle Bay, we call it a replicable model, and hopefully others in the Caribbean will replicate that, and so that's my answer to that.
Thank you. We're good? Okay. With that, I just want... I just want to thank everyone for being able to be this flexible. We've had a lot of changes today, and I'm really grateful for that. I just want to take a very quick moment before we get to our ultra closing, because we were originally planning to have a presentation that was videotaped in the RT Park on May 6th. And for reasons beyond my control, we're going to have it broadcast on Sunday on the CSA YouTube page as well as on Facebook. And I was really hoping to be able to have persons weigh in when we talk about scholarship that is grounded in cultural traditions, cultural heritage, and sacred traditions. I just want to make sure we get clarity, because sometimes when we're speaking, and notice we've gone from a space of agritourism, ecotourism, technology, media, digitization, and then we're navigating that into these cultural creatives. Cultural heritage, yes, but these creative arts and the various traditions therein. And then persons tend to overlook that there's a spiritual component to how we do this. And when I'm speaking of spiritual, I'm speaking of that spirituality that is technological, that spirituality that is grounded in social science, that spirituality that is grounded in our ancestral reverence and presence, and that spirituality that is also grounded in what people tend to use that term race, which is kind of new, but I'm going to say in terms of our ancestral, ancient, African, vibrational, indigenous space. Very different, right? So whatever your religious practice, that's not where we're at. We're speaking, because that's personal, but we're speaking of how do we keep that energetics between us when we're doing this type of work, and how do we contribute that towards, again, the theme of this 47th conference of CSA, transforming our Caribbean, transforming our Caribbean, because persons will hear me say it very frequently. Yes, St. Croix is the cultural capital of the Virgin Islands. And yes, the Virgin Islands are geographically almost at the center of the islands to the north and the islands to the south, just geographically. We didn't plan it like that. That's an ancestral piece, right? But more importantly, we're also at the center of civilization vibrations and building in the entire Americas. So when we're saying America, we're not only speaking of the 48 contiguous US. We're speaking of, from the North Pole to the South Pole, all the different little archipelagos and so forth in between, a little bit of Central America, well, a lot of bit of Central America, South America, etc. And it's really critical that we speak of that. The original piece in this plenary, as we were closing, has a feature with Dr. Marta Moreno Vega, and she was unable to be with us physically because she is receiving an international award for being one of the top Hispanic creative artists in the country. So we just want to extend a round of applause for Dr. Marta Moreno Vega. Right, and she serves as the founder and president of the Creative Justice Initiative. And I know if she was in the room, this would have went on for a few hours, because she's doing the filming and the media and the high quality. And, oh, you can't give me just any kind of graphics, Dr. Chen. You got to give me like top-notch, high definition. Right, so pressing what we're doing in terms of communications. And she has worked with a number of undergraduate as well as graduate students around doing that type of digitization to make sure that our narratives, our history, and our heritage are properly documented and archived. So I'm just saying the next time when she's on island, we're going to bring her in the room. I think that'll be a good sharing as well. And with that, I'm going to ask Manuela. I know she was like, but I wasn't planning to present today. We were going to look at the video, and we were going to all be excited because we were all dressed up, and we did everything professional, and we had this wonderful quality. So ideally, I just want to kind of just put out some cogent points, and you can just chime in on the things that were shared, because that'll allow us to kind of keep it close. One of the reasons I want to really give recognition to Sister Manuela Arciniegas, I'm going to get it correct, because she's not only an ethnomusicologist, She's not only a powerful bomba, how do I call it? You sing, I watched you dance, I watched you play drums, and the sister, listen, who was at Cultural Night the other night? If you were out, that was, we had so, and it was joyous, it was positive, and I want to highlight that the 3 ensembles that came had never played together. And no one knew that. They thought that there was like major rehearsal for like months and weeks, and this was the first time, again, the spirit was all in the presence. And it was almost like at one point as we were cleaning up on the side, they kept playing. Like kept playing, right? And it was amazing because what we did not do was have the proper lighting to make sure that we could have recorded that. I felt that one, Mr. Reed. I felt it and I got it. But we will not let that happen in the future. But I also highlight that Sister Manuela is also the director of Legacy Women. And I think it's very important for her to speak on that. Will you please join me?
Great.
I like when people ask me, like, exactly, should I go for 2 minutes, 5 minutes, or stop? We're going to do it short. Let's go.
Okay. Awesome. So what a blessing, everybody, to be with you. Permission from my elders to speak. Thank you. So we're here because we recognize the work ahead of us is multifaceted, right? We are many, many generations in post the transatlantic slave trade, which has evolved, right? It has evolved to make sure that there are still major economic, political, well-being challenges facing the Caribbean and the children of the African diaspora. And so I would just want to situate myself in the lineage that has brought me here today. And it really was Dr. Marta Moreno Vega, who was meant to be the co-speaker on the panel that we filmed that you'll get to see on Sunday, who was my first auntie to show me what it looks like as a black woman from a Caribbean descendancy to embody the community organizing, the cultural arts, the spiritual eldership and leadership, the visionary mindset, and still be the kind of auntie that says, oh, you just had a baby 3 months ago, you want to serve as my director of education, just bring the crib. And when you have a call, I'll take the baby. We have work to do. And motherhood is a part of how we live the work that we have to do. And so I really, we are standing and living in the legacy of black radical women who have taught us how to do the work of community. And so I come to you from that lineage, and I'm very, very proud of my elders, and I hope that we do our work to make them proud too. So I started an all-women's drumming group. It was the second one in New York City. We were following the lineage of groups like Retumba and others. In 2002, because our brothers were like, hey, you like the drum. It looks like you don't just want to sing and dance. You want to sit on that drum? We're going to teach you. So Ibae, the late master drummer, Alberto Tito Cepeda, who would sit and front row seat in his wheelchair, having taught us and trained us to watch our performances. And unfortunately, there was a time when women were looked down upon for trying to play the bomba drum, the Afro-Puerto Rican roots drum tradition in bomba. And so our elder would sit in front of us and make the meanest face and say, go, play. I taught you. I give you permission. If anybody comes to mess with you, give him my card. That's how he would, give him my card. So thank God for Tito and for our allies and brothers, because I'm actually Dominican, but we step in New York City into a Pan-African, beautiful universe where we got to play with Haitian drummers. We got to be in each other's groups as Dominican, Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Panamanians. We lived in the crossroads of diasporic culture and the musical influence. And so coming back to our Caribbean countries and sharing and living, I loved the visit in St. Croix 2 weeks ago, because I saw that really we are like multiple threads and fabrics. And the way that we see each other, candombe, it's a black thing. We know what that feels like. And the encounter at the drum between all of these different cultural groups, it's a homecoming. We know how that looks and how that feels because it's spiritual and ancestral. And their rhythms do talk to each other. We find each other. We make magic together. And so the Women's Project, Legacy Women, was a chance to continue to create spaces for women who wanted to embody a strong posture, wanted to tell the stories of life from their experiences and what that's been like living in the diaspora, surviving racial capitalism, surviving misogyny, surviving, the anti-critical race theory movement, right? Surviving police brutality, surviving economic deprivation, everything from the resources to buy your first home to a place to buy healthy food that wasn't packaged and processed, and all of these like food deserts in the urban environment. So there's a lot of challenges, but the music and the cultural and spiritual practice is the place where we come to reset, regroup, cleanse, recommit to the long-term vision of the work that we have to do to support, survive, and ideally thrive, right? So we've been surviving for a long time. What does thriving look like? Owning your own economic infrastructure, your own communications infrastructure, your own schools and educational curriculums, your own farmland to eat your own food. These Pan-African visions have been laid out for decades now, and we're the young ones who have a lot of work to do to live into them, hopefully counting on your wisdom and support from our elders. We got work. We got work to do, but if it wasn't for the drum, I would not be showing up for the work. Because that's my contribution, right? It's the drum, it's the history, it's the reconnecting with the fierce spirit of Queen Mary and the Fireburn movement. We sing to them because we invoke them onto the planet now to redirect and guide us and fortify us for the work of resistance, of transformation, of community empowerment and change. Our drumming is with that intention, to call on that resurrecting the spirit of the maroon, which there's still, work. We got work to do. We need that kind of energetic force. And so just thank you so much, Dr. Chin, and everybody here for your beautiful work.
Thank you. That's what okay. With that being said, were there any reflections, comments that were desired herein? Okay, everybody's in a good space. So that lets me get to my favorite part. We really want to give thanks to all of the sponsors and supporters that facilitated the success of this 47th Caribbean Studies Association Conference, hosted here on the cultural capital of the Virgin Islands, St. Croix. We want to extend thanks to our platinum sponsors, the Research and Technology Park, as he steps, and we're grateful. Whoop-woo! To the RT Park here at the University of the Virgin Islands, also the Office of the Governor and the Government of the Virgin Islands, Dr. Simone L. Palmer Wellness Center, the Virgin Islands Department of Tourism. And again, those are our platinum sponsors that really assisted us in being able to get things in place for this particular conference. The gold sponsors, which again, all of their logos, their websites, that information is in our program booklet. It is also available on the CaribbeanStudiesAssociation.org website. The gold sponsors include the Company House Hotel, Caravel Hotel and Casino, the 175th Virgin Islands Emancipation Commemoration Committee, and the, I lost my thought for a second. Get it right. Here at the University of the Virgin Islands, we really want to give a resounding round of applause to the Medical Simulation Center. I need it to sound loud. I want to thank Director Charlene Navarro and Jamal for just really working with us morning, noon, and literally night to make this space available in such a wonderful way. And again, I encourage persons to look very deeply at who the sponsors are and support them, support their businesses, support their initiatives, support their efforts as they are continuing to help build this Virgin Islands economy. One of our other platinum sponsors, which has been what I consider behind the scenes, really helping us in many, many ways, is the St. Croix Foundation for Community Development. Please, a round of applause for St. Croix Foundation for Community Development. One of our silver sponsors is the Virgin Islands Lottery. We want to extend our thanks to Director Raymond Williams. And people know when we speak of him, we speak of the mayor of Grove, just so everybody clear. The mayor of Grove. There we go. And I want to extend those thanks. We also have bronze sponsors, Creative Justice Initiative, as well as Janice K. Bourne. And it's important that I highlight some of the book exhibitors and publishers that are here and have actually contributed to the success of this 47th conference. And that is the University of Mississippi Press, Rutgers University Press, University Press of Florida, and the University of the West Indies Press. I take a moment to highlight the UE Press because they are our publishers for the inaugural CSA Journal, and we want to extend a round of applause to them, and particularly to Director Christine Randall. As I get to that last set of moments here, because it's important that, you know, there's a lot of persons, I could probably go through everyone's name in the space, but it's really important for persons to be very engaged in knowing there were supporters, large and small, that assisted us, whether it was Carambola Beach Resort, whether it was Icon Limited in Jamaica, Let's Do It in the Caribbean, Jamaica, Carib Newsroom, Jamaica. And I want to highlight that this sister right here, Ambassador Sharon Paris Chambers, made all of these Jamaican connections possible. And I want to just give her a round of applause as well. We have Sugar Apple Bed and Breakfast and Featherleaf Inn, Tamarind Reef Resort Hotel, Caribbean Museum Center for the Arts. We send in a lot of love for just facilitating our cultural night for CSA at 47. The Women's Coalition of St. Croix, Live Up Nutrition, House of Nehesi Publishers in St. Martin, Parent University, Conscious Lyrics Foundation in St. Martin, the African Queen Mothers Warriors Enterprise, as well as Oz Speaks. And I think it's important that there are some names that might be missing from the actual program, but we also want to extend a lot of love, a lot of thanks for persons coming out of their space to be able to come and be part of this journey. This was not an easy journey. And as we do this particular closing, I know most persons are focused on what's happening this evening with the gala, and I pray that everybody did their RSVP because it is something that's you need to RSVP, please. At the same time, there's going to be some other activities. We have support from the Virgin Islands Good Food Coalition. Thank you, Summer, for just supporting a post-gala gathering right in Christiansted at Levels, and it's intergenerational. So they play a little bit of this on this level, a little bit of that on this level, and a little bit of this on this level. So I want to send a special shout out to Kamal Russell for just making that possible as well. Keeping in mind that CSA is an organization that really focuses on interdisciplinary studies, multiculturalism, multilingualism. We're looking forward to you continuing to support the work that we have to do, that we do it together, that we do it cooperatively and with the deepest amount of respect for one another. And with that, just like we started, I was given something else that I was supposed to share. So there is this wonderful historical novel by S.T. Shahroz called The Return of Lakshmini. And I'm just letting persons know, whoever can guess who her relative is that is here at CSA will get a copy of this book. Just something to think about. In the meantime, in between time, I have cards for persons that want to be able to look into that, because this is a book that really speaks to historical context in our Caribbean spaces, but through a lens of the East Indian space, because sometimes we too forget that realm of our engagement. So we do have this Eurasian portion, this African portion. We got this very this indigenous place, and it's important that we keep all of that together. Again, it's been an honor and a privilege I'm excited because we've got some new leadership coming into CSA. It means I get to change my title from president to immediate past president. I'm excited this time. I know some of you aren't always pleased with that, but it's okay. It means I'll have a little bit more time and more energy and work to do our transformational work for our Caribbean a little differently. Tonight we're going to be giving out various awards, and I want to just highlight that while some of that will be reserved for the actual award ceremony, all of this information will be on the website at CaribbeanStudiesAssociation.org. Again, CaribbeanStudiesAssociation.org. And just as I shared in this program booklet, and I'm going to turn to it so I can close most respectfully, it is no secret that Caribbean culture and its diaspora are undergoing another renaissance. Our values, calls for self-determination, and engagement platforms are reaching a global audience more than ever. CSA 2023 has been designed to help future-proof the movement for the next generation of academics, artists, activists, entrepreneurs, and thought leaders. Let's renew those relationships throughout CSA 2023 conference and continue to celebrate the best of us in all of us. Again, transforming our Caribbean. We hope you've had a wonderful experience here in St. Croix, and we look forward to CSA 2024 in St. Lucia in June of 2024. Blessings and Asheo! All righty. Thank you.